What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 4 of Skins in the Game. And John and Tim, again this week, are going to start talking about what's going on in the sports world. And today we start with the 24-team NHL bracket that had just came out this afternoon. Official, it has been approved. And how it's going to work is you have the top 4 teams of each conference, so they still stayed in the East and West conferences. And they will play a round robin to seed themselves as the top 4 seed. And then the rest of the 8 teams in each conference will play a play-in series to get into a 16-team bracket. And they will play a best of 5 to get in. What do you think?
All right. When you say a round robin, first of all, let me ask you that. What are they playing? Like, they have to play 3 games each to play each one once, or?
Yes, they're going to play each team once, so they'll get 3 games to play. The other teams will get a potential of 5 games, because if they go all 5 games, before they actually get into the 16-team actual playoff bracket. So they'll play each team once.
The top seeds are playing 3 games each, not 3 series. I didn't think that, but...
Okay, yeah, one game each.
Okay. So, I think that there's 31 teams in the NHL, and to have 24 of them make it into the playoffs, it seems like what's the point of playing your 81-game season? Now, I know this year it's going to be, shouldn't say I know that because they don't start till October, but it's possible that their schedule is going to be affected. But this sounds like it's going to be playoffs forever, and you have 3/4 of the teams making it to the playoffs. So a lot of people complained about half the teams. But
yeah, I think this is only for this year, though. I don't think this is going to be a continuous thing in the years to come. This is just a quarantine. I think they're calling it the quarantine. Crap, I can't remember what they called it. But anyway, it's a quarantine playoff. That this is just a one-time thing. So they're not going to continue this after this year. But because every team didn't get to finish in the regular season, like they didn't finish the regular season, they're giving them a chance to play in. Because you would think of those last games at the end of the season would have been their play-in games to get in.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So this is. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that this was just a one-time thing.
At least that's my understanding. I think this is just the playoffs for this.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's okay. So it's a one-time. It's a gimmick.
Yep.
So you called it. I realize now.
The Quarantine Classic. That's what.
Classic, yeah. So that's what I was saying is that you were going to call it that. But so all right. So if this is a gimmick to make it fair for the people that were in the playoffs or likely heading to the playoffs this year, and next year they might not play as well, and then it'll get screwed. So okay, if it's a one-time thing and it's a gimmick thing, then great. It's a money grab if you ask me, because there'll be a lot more playoff games, which I'm sure they're going to be hurting are hurting, I should say, with the games they've lost in the season.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's basically to recoup some money, and so okay, I'm fine with that. If it's a one-time thing, like I said, I misunderstood it. I thought
you're
was
fine.
Going to be new hockey season. I'm like, okay. But anyway, no, if that's all it is, then I'm fine with it.
This is
though.
Yeah, it should be fun. It should be interesting. But the only thing that I found is they voted on it, and apparently 29 teams out of the 31 approved it at first, and I guess they came back and all 31 teams approved it, but 2 teams did not like the setup, and it was one team that was completely out of it, and another team that, which was the Philadelphia Flyers, they did not like it because they said that the format, the top 4 seeds are only going to be playing play-in games, when the other teams are playing legit playoff hockey, saying that they're getting preseason games because their games don't really matter because they're going to make it either way, while the other teams are playing fight for their life hockey coming out the gate.
No,
do you think there's any weight?
Yeah, I understand what they mean, but also you could be taken 2 ways. It depends on what the team, the better the seeding you get, the weaker your first round team, and maybe teams aren't going to be worried about that, but it does have some impact on what you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I could say, oh, they're just playing preseason games, because preseason games don't matter at all.
Right.
So you could argue the weight of the games and whether or not they mean enough that they're going to play, but something tells me that a team's going to want to be the first seed more so than they want to be the fourth seed. So they're going to put some effort into it because of that. So I don't agree with the comparison with preseason games.
Maybe they don't want to be the top seed. Maybe there's some gamesmanship to want to be the second or third, because maybe because they have a chance. If you're the third team, you have a chance to play the 11th seed in the tournament. If New York Rangers get by the Carolina Hurricanes, then you could all of a sudden be playing the 11th seed. Where if you're the first seed, you're automatically going to be playing the 8 or 9 seed. Theoretically, the first team's out.
Right.
Well, I guess not the first seed. The 5 seed is the first time.
Right. You know what Doc Walker would say? If you think
set him up and knock him down, right?
Well, he would say be one of the top 4 teams then.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you don't like if the top 4 seeds got it easy, well then just be top 4 team.
Right.
If you can't, then shut up. But anyway.
So yeah, that was the Eastern Conference. Here's the Western Conference setup. Where would you want the Caps to be the 1 seed, or what do you think? Do you have any gamesmanship here, or do you just want them to try to win all 3 games? Maybe save their players, maybe not go all out, maybe just play them only 5-10 minutes. I know they only play usually 15 minutes anyway. They don't play a whole lot of time anyway. But I don't know. Is there any gamesmanship there?
I don't. It depends. I don't know you'd have to know what the other seeds are and who their potential opponents were. That if you had some underdog team or sleeping or dark horse is what I meant to say, that is suddenly doing great and ends up being the number 1 or one of the that the number 1 seed's going to play, then you might want to be the number 1 seed. But say the Hurricanes aren't in the top 4, but they would line up with you if you were the top seed, then you're probably not going to want to be the top
well,
seed.
you know who your opponent is if you get top seed. Your opponent is going to be the winner. Like, so in this case, let's say Boston gets the top seed. They will play the winner of the Maple Leafs or the Blue Jackets.
Well, but so when they're playing the round robin, do they know who the winner of that is yet?
No, I don't know when. They don't have any dates on this yet. They said they're not going to be coming into training camp until as early as July 1st. So they won't even do training camp until July 1st. And then after, I guess they're going to give 2 to 4 weeks of training camp, I guess, for people to get back in hockey shape before they get back on the ice. So they don't. I don't know of any dates yet. So is the playoffs? Yeah, are they qualifying rounds going to be first? Are they going to be doing it at the same time? Or is the round robin going to be first? I would think, and I would rather have it be at the same time, just so that this, because then there's nobody's getting rest, if that makes sense. Like they're all playing at the same time, and they're going to go into the tournament in the same way, rather than anybody getting rest.
Oh yeah, they'd have to do at least close to that. But my point is maybe that if you get the number 1 seed, you're not going to get the Hurricanes because they're not in that bracket or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have the possibility of 2 teams, and depending on which 2 teams they are, you may say, "Oh, those guys are a tougher matchup than the guys in this bracket, and I would rather finish second, or I would rather be fourth." But if you get to see the brackets and know the teams you're going to face, then that gives you an advantage of knowing which bracket, and if you're a really good
team,
you
will know. Let me just be perfectly clear. You will know the 2 teams that you will play against. You just don't know the winner yet of those 2 teams. So you will know if I get 3rd seed, I play the winner of the Carolina Hurricanes and the Rangers. If I get for 4th seed, I play the winner of the Penguins and the Montreal.
Yeah, and I get that, and that's what I'm saying is that could give you an advantage of saying, "Oh, I don't want to face the Rangers or the Hurricanes, so I don't. If I have a chance of being the 3rd seed or the
4th
seed,
if I have the 4th seed, I could lose out and be like, I don't want to be the 3rd seed. You could take the 3rd seed. I'll take the 4th. But yeah, anyway, it's interesting. We'll see if there's any gamesmanship. How serious the top 4 teams of each conference take it. It'll be definitely interesting. I think it's awesome. I think more games like this. Obviously, like, because one of the best things in the world is the NCAA tournament, and 64 teams are not qualified to be the best team in the nation. Well, 68 teams now with the 4 play-in games. But now they could be. Right?
Yeah,
Like, they could be the
yep.
best team. So,
Right.
Awesome. All right, we'll go ahead and move on
Turns down.
to the next thing. And if you didn't watch it on Sunday, I don't know what you were doing, because it was Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady versus Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning for the match 2. The match number 2. I can give a play, like, kind of go through everything if you want me to, or did you have any first thoughts before I did that? Did you enjoy it?
Well, yeah, I would say this, that they drug it out too long, number one. The beginning of it was, and then they were, it was funny, they drug it out for the start for an hour, and then they were fighting darkness at the end. So I didn't know why they had an hour build up to it, or they should have started earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the weather didn't help it with the rain, certainly on the front 9. Coupled with that, with the fact that Mickelson was really nervous. I got to be honest with you, for the first 4 or 5 holes, I was having a hard time. I had it on and I was kind of watching it, but I had a hard time not getting sidetracked.
Mm-hmm.
I think after Brady made that one
Yep,
shot,
I got that on here, my breakdown here, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to go through what your breakdown is. But I
just go through exactly what happened, not like a full play-by-play, but just to kind of go through. So, as you said, Phil Mickelson was nervous, and Tom Brady was playing like doggy doo-doo for the first like 6 holes or so. So, Woods and Peyton Manning take the first lead on the third hole. Peyton actually comes in. So how the setup was working is the first 9 holes, they were just playing their game, and then whichever of the 2 partners had the better score, they took that one as a team. The back half became a modified best ball, and then they would alternate shots. So all 4 players would take the tee shot. The team then could decide which ball they wanted to use. And then, so if Tom Brady hit a nicer tee shot, or maybe a tee shot that Phil Mickelson felt better about getting a second shot on, they would use Tom Brady's ball, and then Phil would take the second shot, and then they would alternate from there on out. So in the beginning, it was pretty cool. On the 4th hole, Peyton Manning actually was the one to get the birdie on a par 3, which throughout the day he did really well on the par 3s. And he did a nice chip in for birdie. And then there was on hole number 7. So at this point, Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning were up by 3, and it seemed like it was going to get away from him. Phil Mickelson again on hole 7 was not having a great hole. Tom Brady was on his 4th shot going in and rips one from way outside, curls back in to make it, to save par, to stay within 3. Because they could have gone down 4 if he did not make that shot, if not worse, depending on how Phil played and Tom Brady. But Tom Brady knocks it in. That was really the best moment of the day, was that shot, because Charles Barkley was just ripping him a new one. I want to play you in golf. And good old Charles Barkley. And then all of a sudden he makes that, and Tom Brady's like, yeah, Charles? So that was pretty cool. All right, so then on hole number 11, so on the back half, hole number 11, Tom and Phil win their first hole. Phil made a great drive, and Tom putted it in. Peyton Manning on hole 14 then falters to make it, then bring Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson back within 1. So now it's a 1-stroke game going into hole 15. Phil then makes a big, huge putt, a nice long one, to again stay within 1. Tiger Woods put some pressure on him, and Phil made it. 16th hole was a cool par 3. So Russell Wilson actually came on, and he said, if any player gets within 12 feet of the hole, I will give 100,000 meals to his charity. And Phil Mickelson comes up, starts it off, gets it within 12 feet. Boom. Tom Brady then steps up, makes a crazy shot, gets it within 10 feet. Peyton Manning then comes up and gets it within 17 and a half inches of the hole. Pretty great. If you would have said who was going to be the farthest from the hole, who's betting Tiger Woods? Yeah.
That was kind of funny.
So that was cool on 16. So Russell Wilson then donated 300,000 meals to their charity for the COVID relief. And then, unfortunately, that's kind of where it waned off. It was kind of an anticlimactic finish. They all just parred for the last holes and tied it out. And they didn't even try. They didn't even put pressure on Peyton Manning to make the last putt. They said Tiger Woods got close enough, and they just said pick it up, and it was over. I wanted him to make Peyton Manning hit that last one because he had already faltered on 14. It could have made it really interesting all of a sudden to keep going into a playoff, but you already said you dragged it off too wrong, so I guess you wouldn't have really appreciated that. So
no, I would have been fine with that. My problem was how much they drug it out at the beginning.
Yes.
I mean, they spent 20 minutes on the practice tees talking to him. It seemed like then they went through all this preview, and it was like, I mean, it was 45 minutes into the program, I think, and they were still on the, I think Tiger went over to the putting green or something, or was it Tom Brady? I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
But they drug it out for an hour before the start, and then, like I said, they were rushing for darkness. And I will say this, that I think the production was okay, and they made $20 million for charities. That's great, but and I'm sure no crowds had something to do with it. But this was nowhere near as good as Tiger and Phil Mickelson last year doing the head-to-head. That was fun. They were going back and forth, and I thought that was competitive, and it was a lot more interesting, or what's the word? We're absorbing whatever, where your eyes
Engaged.
were on the TV watching. Yeah,
Engaged. Yeah.
I just didn't feel that. I thought it was, like I said, a neat thing. It was kind of funny to hear the ribbing. And I just wanted to say one other thing, that they were talking the whole match about Charles Barkley's bogey challenge on the 18th hole, and I thought, okay, this should be fun because everybody knows Charles isn't that good of a golfer. But because of the light, they ended up showing it condensed. So they basically showed Charles drive or hit it off the tee, and didn't show it was like, and then immediately showed him at his cart to do the next shot, and then he went. So they didn't show it as, you didn't hear him talking, you didn't hear him saying anything. It was basically just, and then he lifts it out, misses his bogey. But it's, again, because you drug it out and you were running out of light, and who knows, maybe they planned on doing that the whole time. But I thought, okay, that was not nearly as fun as listening to Charles have to take it from other guys or whatever as he's driving his cart up to the next shot.
Give Tom Brady a chance to talk some smack back at him.
Yeah, it was just like this, by the way, we got to show you this, and it went boom. It was over in like 2 minutes, and it was like, okay, that was anticlimactic too, because they built that up most of the round. So remember that it's Charles Barkley's going to have the 18th hole bogey challenge for 150 if he makes bogey, 250 if he makes a par, which probably is not a real big chance with Charles, but much like my golf game. But anyway, I thought I'd give the overall thing about a C or so, a C plus. There were some interesting parts, but all in all, for a 5-hour production, it wasn't nearly as entertaining as what it might have been.
That's probably fair. I did like the back half of the tournament. I thought it was kind of fun to watch them go. I wanted Phil and Tom just to come back, just to see a playoff, just to make it interesting, and they did make it interesting, at least to come back within one, so it wasn't a blowout going into the back nine. But
keep in mind, and I was thinking playoff too, but then that dawned on me. Keep in mind that if they would have had to have a playoff hole, they would have likely had to do it the next day because it was too dark to play another hole.
Maybe that's why they didn't make Peyton hit that shot. They didn't want to go any further. They just said, you know what, screw it. It's too dark to play any more golf at this point. I agree. I don't know what that first hour was. I turned it on expecting it to start at 3:00, and I'm just sitting there waiting. Like, where are they going to play? Or are they not going to play? Like, they're just hitting golf balls off the tee.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
A little introduction is fine, but an hour was too much. And I just was going to say that, TV, the filters they have on TV cameras make it look a lot brighter than it is out there. And I don't know if you were paying attention to outdoors. I know I was looking out my window knowing that they're in Florida. We're in the same time zone.
Yep.
And it was getting dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wasn't sure how they were supposed. If they would have been 15
And it was a
minutes
cloudy
longer,
day, so it was really
Yeah.
dark. It wasn't some nice Florida day. It was obviously rainy and nasty out, so yeah, it was. I'm sure
Yeah.
it was extremely dark. Phil may not even seen how close it was. Maybe he just thought it was closer than it actually was.
yeah. Yeah, and if you're at the right angle, it always seems closer.
Right. The only other thing I wanted to mention in the beginning, the one thing that did come out that was pretty funny was they asked Peyton who would his caddy be if he was able to choose, and he starts going through some people that he's like, I thought about Eli or maybe Nick Foles.
Yeah.
And then he goes, you know what? I'll send it on Bill Belichick. Yeah, Bill Belichick would be my caddy.
Yeah. Peyton was definitely the bright spot of the.
I took that as kind of a shot of like, you know what? I would be where you were if I had that great of a coach. Let me get that coach and see where I'm at instead of.
Yeah, he was definitely the bright spot of the driving range.
Yeah, and then he goes. Then he said, Tom Brady. If you'd ask him, it's probably be Gronkowski because Gronkowski does whatever he says.
Yeah. Yeah, he was taking some shots. That's for sure.
That was funny. That's awesome. All right, cool. So yeah, that was just a quick segment there. Yeah, it was. I agree. C plus maybe at best. I did enjoy the last few holes. I thought it was cool going back and forth. I was hoping that Phil and Tom completed the comeback just to make it even more interesting, but they didn't, and the rest is history. Awesome. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic, which there's a few NFL potential rules and one rule being taken away. So we'll go ahead and start with that one. The pass interference challenge is no more after just one season. So it is completely gone. If you don't remember, of course, the Saints-Rams game, everybody threw a huge fit over the horrible missed call. The NFL tried to implement a pass interference review. Coaches abused the heck out of it and tried to make way too many challenges, which made the success rate of that challenge just abysmal. And it was such a huge failure because nobody had any common sense of how a pass interference challenge should work, and it was scrapped. Are you going to miss it? Do you think they should have tried to keep it and adjust it, or do you think it's good that it's gone?
No, I don't. I'm not going to miss it at all. I think that calls like that happen to be Monday morning conversations. But if they were going to change the rule in any way, I think it ought to simply be the referee upstairs. That if especially and I would say it has to be egregious, something obvious, but in a play like that where obviously they were either not looking at the play, and I'm talking about the play with Seattle or not Seattle, the
Saints and the Rams, yeah.
Yeah, that in a play that egregious to not give the guy up in the booth the ability to just call down and say, okay, you missed that one, it's pass interference, but not bring the coaches into it. Not have the guy, and I know it's easy to say all this, but not have that referee get involved in every other play, but just the ability to say when something is that egregious for them to be able to say upstairs, okay, you blew it. And no coach has to blow a challenge on it. It's not was it a fumble? Was it not a fumble? It was close. This was something that was just missed. Mm-hmm. And for them not to be able to have a mechanism to have somebody that, whether it's another referee that saw it or a guy upstairs that's watching the game from above, to be able to just simply call down and say, you guys missed that one, it's pass interference. And then not have a challenge, not have a 2-minute delay, not have coaches, throwing out the red flag, because I've always been of the belief.
So this obviously then kind of segues into the Sky Judge, because you kind of have been talking about him, is the ref upstairs to be able to watch it. So they have 7 refs on the field, and then they would have an 8th ref, whether it be in a booth or be able to watch the game live on video to kind of be able to make it, but they have to be able to be there too to see things that the camera may not have caught either. So, but to be able to use both, and I agree. But here's how the Sky Judge works in the AAF, the where it was now. So the Sky Judge only makes safety-related calls until the last 5 minutes in the game, where they could actually make game decision calls for the ref. So you wouldn't have any pass interference calls in the third quarter, second quarter. You wouldn't have anything on the fumbles or anything like that from the sky judge. The sky judge at that time is only there to get illegal hits after the play or unnecessary roughness calls or different things like that are supposed to be player safety related calls.
Yeah, because Lord knows we need more of those calls.
Yeah. So,
I'm.
But it's an immediate thing. He has direct access to the head ref. He does not. The head ref doesn't come over to the Microsoft Edge thing, touchscreen, and look at it and spend 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes on, all right, what's the play? What's this? What's that? It's, nope, you missed a call. Throw the flag. It was illegal hit on number 54. 15-yard penalty. Move the ball. Blah, blah, blah. Like, whatever the case may be.
Well, and I would say this, that I don't agree with, if you're going to have a sky judge and let him be a judge like all the other refs, and if you want to, just like the back judge and the line judge pays attention to a specific part of the game, so they're likely not to see a lot of stuff in the secondary if you're the line judge. You make the sky judge, you tell him, look, you focus on these things, but if that guy during the game sees something else, he ought to be able to make the call just like any other ref. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be, no, if you see a egregious, or something that's obvious to you, first of all, you're up in the booth, so it would have to be really obvious for you to see it. But if you see something that's obvious, but you're not allowed to call it because other than the last 5 minutes, you're only in there for the safety calls, then I think that's bordering on ridiculous. Make the guy a sky judge, and the sky judge's responsibility is safety, period. He's going to naturally see other things, again, just like all the other refs do, but his primary focus is to focus on safety. But again, if he sees something, let him call the daggone thing, and don't make a difference whether or not it's 5 minutes left or not.
So you would still say the pass interference calls he can make all game. I guess also, like, what calls would then be off limits? I guess, like, out of bounds, I guess he would be able to call. Down by contact, he would be able to call, because he would also have access to video review. And so he would also have access to video review. So he could potentially make a lot of calls. The one thing that I do not want him to make any single call on off limits is holding. Because there could be a holding on every play in the NFL. Let the judges on the field call that. Because if you do that with review...
So you're saying the sky judge is going to be up there looking at video and reviewing plays and seeing if there's any late hits and then calling it down to the ref if he sees a late hit?
He has access. He is watching every play live, but in between plays, he has access to video review.
Okay, well then that's fine. That if they say that the only thing he can review is safety related, but I don't think you ought to handcuff him into whether or not if he sees something on the field and can offer a valid opinion or a valid decision on that. Again, watching it live. Hey,
so if he only sees it, you're saying if he sees it on the booth without replay, he's allowed to make the call. But if he has to refer to replay, then he can't.
Well, and again, replay. The only thing he can review is safety-related calls. But if he sees something, then my God, tell the ref. Why in the world would you see something and let the game and not want him to be able to say, "Hey, by the way, Bob, you blew the call. There was pass interference down there."
The only reason that I would say that you wouldn't want that to happen is that you don't want flags all the time. I mean, you have 250-plus pound people hitting the heck out of each other, like holding each other, grabbing each other. As I said, there could be a hold on every play. There could be some sort of illegal block or illegal hit or something. Like, just about every play, I'm sure that you could find something especially if you review it. But if you have the sky judge being able to look at other things, I guess you're saying that he could only call egregious things, but he should be able to access all of this stuff?
Tim, this is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the line judge able to make other calls besides the line? Or why is the back judge allowed to call anything other than the stuff that he's responsible for? It's because if you're on the field and you're a referee, you can make calls that you see. And if you see something from the other side of the field and you see a guy grab a face mask or something, they're going to throw the flag, and they're allowed to, even though their responsibility is the line or the back judge or whoever, So all I'm saying is if you got a referee that's on there and he sees something, and yeah, everybody, it could go bad. It could be, you know, he's calling 35 penalties a game. Then you got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just talking about if the guy sees something, because basically by them saying he's allowed to call this stuff, but he's not allowed to call this until the last 5 minutes, is they're preventing him from that situation where I can guarantee you that at some point next year when this stuff is going on, that there's going to be something happening or something that happens and people are going to be going, why can't the Sky Judge say anything about that? He didn't see that? You know what I mean? And maybe he didn't, but it just doesn't make sense to me to restrict what he calls. And again, and let me even go further. If you don't think it's a good idea that he calls those things, I understand that, but why in the last 5 minutes of the game then? Why not at all? Why none at all? You're in there for safety, period. Why in the last 5 minutes of the game?
What do you mean?
Because you said that he can only make safety-related calls until the last 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Then
he could make other calls with replay.
But that's what I'm saying. If it's not a good idea for him to make those calls throughout the game, why have him make them in the last 5 minutes?
Because I guess you would say, well, first of all, the main reason is, and I know I just said it, is to avoid too many flags. Like, one of the worst parts about preseason is when you have 24 flags in the first half, and you're like, this is unwatchable. I can't watch this game when every single play is a penalty. So you don't want to give somebody that has full access, because when you're a line judge, you only have a certain line of view, right? And also, like, if you're all the way across the field, you have people running in front of you, you only have a certain line of view. You're not going to see everything on the field. The person in the sky could see a whole lot more, where potentially you're throwing the flag way too often, so you limit his focus, so you don't have too many penalties. But the main focus you want throughout the game is safety, because that's where the NFL is going anyway. And then in the last 5 minutes, you don't want that pass interference call missed, where you can't do anything like that. So you basically, it's kind of like the same rule we have right now. We have the booth review can only happen in the last 2 minutes of a half. Why not have the booth review all the time? Well, it's because you really only want the booth review to happen when it actually matters in the last couple of minutes, right? Like that's where things cannot change at that point. Yes, if it happens in the first quarter, you have if something bad happens in the first quarter, you have time throughout the game to get that call back. If that makes sense. Once it's in the last 2 minutes, a bad call happens, you lose the ball, and now you have no chance to make it. There's no more time to get that call back. Like, all right, I'll get the next call, or blah blah blah, whatever. There is no next call. That's it. That's the game. So you bring in the NFL Sky Judge to say, all right, I'm making calls in the last 5 minutes, so that a game deciding pass interference or game deciding fumble or game deciding whatever can get reviewed right on the field. And the point of him, and he would be, I would assume, in place of the booth review, because he's going to be much quicker than sending it to New York. Okay, review this play. This is the part that we need reviewed, whatever, and it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. He theoretically could do it within 15, 20 seconds. So you're replacing it with the Sky Judge.
You didn't say that earlier. You were saying that I didn't know that their plan is to make him now. So when a guy throws a challenge flag, that the Sky Judge is going to be the one making the call.
I would assume that's how it's going to work. To be honest, I don't know if that's exactly how it is. I can look into that later. But
see, because I don't think New York is going to give that up. I still think they're going to have centralized people that are going to be looking at this stuff to make sure that they get the reviews right. But maybe that's going to be the case. But and again, we can disagree, but I say that no, I don't want the guy calling 25 penalties. I understand that. Mm-hmm. But I can guarantee you that there's going to be a play where somebody is going to say, well, if the Sky Judge was allowed to make that call, he would have made it. And another thing I want to say is he's watching a TV monitor. So he's not an omnipresent thing that sees all 22 guys and everything that's happening on the field. He is, like every other ref, he's looking on a TV monitor to see stuff. And he's looking for late hits. He's looking for certain things. So his concentration should be on that. I'm just saying that if if there's something that was obviously missed and this guy saw it, I just say he should be able to call down and say, "I saw this, you missed it." And yeah, that I don't want that to translate into 25 holding calls on the line. That's not what I'm talking about. But
You
those
also
play.
you also take take him off the hook in because if he has the entire game where he makes all these calls, if he misses something in the second quarter, he's catching heat for that. But with this, if you just say no, he's only there to focus on safety, you take him off the hook for the first 55 minutes of the game, and then it's like, all right, you have to be on your real game for that.
Oh no, Tim, you are
What?
so wrong with that. You know how many times they complain about late hits. He is not going to be off the hook because there are going to be people that are complaining left and right about that was not a late hit. That was a ticky-tack call. He's going to be catching heat about the other stuff too.
Yeah, but you just eliminated 80% of it probably by not saying he's only there to focus on safety related calls. And if he does miss a safety related call, he should take heat because you're missing a safety related call. Like we're here to protect the players as much as anything else because we don't want them getting hurt because that's our product. Not to mention we also care about humanity, but of course mostly they're going to focus on this is our product. We don't want to lose Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, blah blah blah. And you're saying he should take heat if he misses a safety-related issue. Somebody grabs the face mask and almost breaks somebody's neck, and you miss that, you should take heat for that. If somebody hits a dude way out of bounds, you should take heat for that. But should he take heat for every single call?
I get what you're saying, Tim, but basically you said there's already too many calls a lot of times. You're bringing in another judge to make calls that other guys have apparently missed because they feel like they need a side judge because they're missing safety calls. So you're just talking about him no matter what he does, he's adding calls to the game. He's not replacing calls. Maybe he replaces some, but something tells me that he's only involved in that safety call if the guy on the field doesn't throw the flag and call the personal foul. He's going to call down and say, "Oh no, that was a bad hit. It's a personal foul. So, there's one more penalty in the game." And every time he makes that call, he is adding to the total number of penalties. So how many is that? I don't know. Is it 5 a game? How many are they missing? Because, again, apparently the NFL is saying that without a sky judge, we have too many referees missing too many safety calls. So we need a guy that concentrates on that. So he's going to be adding penalty calls to a game, not in most cases, not replacing any.
He may not replace very many at all. He may be adding some. Most likely, I'll give you that. I'll grant you that. Most of his calls are going to be adding calls rather than replacing calls. But you're adding calls for what most people, an overwhelming majority of people will say, that's good to protect the players. But if he's calling everything on the field, this could just get out of control where it's like, oh, there's another penalty. Like, you're also, and also, as I said, you're taking him off the hook for, how'd you miss that, I don't know, holding call? Or how'd you miss that pass interference? Well, it's like, I was looking at number 72 smacking the dude in a way illegal hit, standing around.
I get what you're saying. I'm not arguing that. I understand what you're saying there. But let me ask you this, just your opinion. On average, how many safety-related calls do you think that the referees on the field miss?
Safety-related calls,
like
do
a
they
call
miss?
where you say, like a guy gets his bell rung and the referee doesn't throw a flag, or a guy gets a cheap shot on a quarterback that the referee doesn't throw a flag.
Well, if you're Jordan Reed, that's like 78 calls missed right there. But for the rest of the league, I don't know, maybe a few calls a game. I would say no more than a handful probably a game, but on average maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. I would assume that the refs are pretty good at making these calls. So I don't think you're adding a bunch of them. But how many holding calls do they miss? How many pass interference calls do they miss? How many?
Tim, I understand, but that's making
like
my argument. That's
What's
making
that?
my argument that you're saying, yeah, the guys miss a lot of holding calls and they miss a lot of other stuff. And I'm saying that, hey, we got a sky judge that could be an extra set of eyes. And you're like, no, we don't want more penalties.
We don't want it. We don't want. It's not that we don't want more penalties, but we don't want an overwhelming number of penalties.
That's what I meant when I said that. That's my whole point of saying that you don't want to you say these guys miss a lot of calls, but you don't want somebody else coming there and making them because then the game's not fun. If there's 25 holds a game on a team, but you're only calling 5 of them, you don't want the guy coming in there that's going to see the other 20, because then you're going to have a penalty call every play, and you don't want that. So you don't mind the fact that the guys are holding a lot more than they're called, because otherwise that would take away from the game, right? I mean, that's what you're saying, is that on the one hand, I don't want the guy giving me 25 holding calls a game because he can see it and the referees don't see it, because that's going to mess up the rhythm of the game. But then on the other hand, you're like, oh, well, I don't think the guys on the field miss that many safety calls, but boy, they miss a lot of holding calls.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll give you the last word on that. I won't respond. It's fine. But because we could go on forever about
another word if you want.
No, we could go on forever with how this is a horrible idea. But just a last quick thoughts. I think a sky judge would be good. Just we'll argue on how it's used. But do you agree that the sky judge would be useful and you like it?
Oh, it could be useful. Yes.
Sweet. So sky judge, good idea. How we implement it, we're gonna fight over it until the end of time. All right.
We could do a whole episode on that subject.
Yeah, right? All right. So, last potential rule change, which is very interesting, is no more onside kicks. Instead, you give the team a 4th and 15 chance to keep the possession. I don't know where they're starting. I haven't been able to find that yet. Like, do they start on the 35-yard line with the kickoff? Do they start on the 20? Where are they getting this 4th and 15? That's a question I have. But other than that, I like it.
Okay.
I think it's fun.
I guess we find another thing that we utterly and totally disagree on.
Okay.
Because I think this is 9 ways wrong. I think that you're going to have good teams against not so good teams. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, let's say
Kansas City, the best offense in football. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't think that Kansas City would go for the onside kick on every single one of every time they score a touchdown, we're going to go for the 4th and 15 because we're going to beat you by 50 points, or we're going to score 50 points, and we don't.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
To fight against that concern is you only get 2 per game. So you can't do it on every single time. And another thing that they brought up is, can the winning team do an onside kick? Or is this only for the losing team to have a chance to come back?
Yeah, it's, you know what, if they take away, I love the early game, catch a team off guard, onside kick, and you get the ball, and they're totally unprepared for it. And you know, you go to kick the ball and they're backpedaling and your guy falls on it. And then you have that desperate chance at the end of the game that, okay, we've scored a touchdown. We're down by 6 points. There's only a minute left. We have no timeouts. This is our only shot. And to take that away and then again, so you take it away. Okay. So you do 4th and 15. Oh, but wait, you can't do it at any time during the game. You can only do it 2 times a game, and if you're in the lead, you can't do it. It's like
I'm not a biggest fan of the lead one. I agree with you there. Like, I don't like the you can't do it if you are in the lead. I think that's kind of ridiculous. But I do like twice per game, maybe only once per half. You do it that way. And then also, does it completely make the onside kick illegal? That's a good point. I'm guessing that's the idea, is that they're making it illegal.
Well, that was my understanding, is there is no longer an onside kick. But it just, again, I just think if it's a good thing and you're going to replace the onside kick with it, then replace the onside kick with it. But to say, well, but you can only do it 2 times a game. Now, granted, most teams aren't doing 4 onside kicks a game. I understand that. But it just...
Well, also, the big problem is right now, just to say this real quick, is from 2013 to 2017, the success rate of an onside kick was 16.3%. With the new rules of you can't really be creative with your onside kick anymore. You have 5 guys on this side, 5 guys on this side. You can't overload one side. You can't try to get the team and do motions and things like that. It's like, this is how your team's set. It halved in 2019
right,
to
but
8%.
That's another discussion whether or not I thought that was a good rule change. I think that's a bogus rule change too. But I know everything's all about keeping everybody safe, and they want to protect their insurance money. That's what they do. So they make these rule changes because we're going to make this game safe. And you know what? The game's it's be like boxing. It's people boxing saying, "Oh, well now in boxing you cannot hit your opponent in the head because that could be detrimental to them."
Going to the body. We're going to the body.
But you play the game, and yes, there are egregious plays that we've all known when we've seen it. The head face mask is a penalty all day long. You can't grab horse collar, that can hurt people. But the defenseless receiver and hitting the crown of your helmet, and again, it all sounded real good when the idea came out, but it's gotten so blown out of proportion where you got receivers now at the last second dropping down, and then a guy that's going for the guy's chest, it suddenly becomes his helmet, and he hits him with his helmet, and I would not be surprised if receivers don't kind of do it on purpose. It's like, I see the guy coming, so let me protect myself and duck my head down, and now the guy hits your helmet, and it's 15 yards because hitting your helmet's illegal. It's gotten way out of control, and they're killing the game slowly by trying to make it safe. It's not a safe game. It just isn't.
If you get hit by a 300-pound dude, that ain't safe. There's no making that safe. Right. No helmet can make that safe.
Right. And I understand your quarterback, you can't have guys targeting your quarterback. Okay, I understand that. You protect them to a certain degree. But now you got guys falling over or throwing their hand up in the air, and their hand goes up in the air and it comes down on top of the guy's head. Doesn't even move his head, but it's hands to the helmet, 15-yard penalty. It's out of control.
Yeah, the quarterbacks, you have to sack them on pillows. Yeah, it's really bad there. No, I agree, but I like this 4th and 15 idea because now if you're down by 2 scores more than a field goal, so if you're down by 13, let's say, and you score the touchdown, the 4th and T with 2 seconds left, the 4th and 15 gets you an opportunity to score a touchdown, whereas the onside kick, you're gonna waste those 2 seconds. Those 2 seconds are gone. It's this onside kick's just a wasted play at that point where it's like, okay, do we just give them one Hail Mary? Maybe that's also a way to say that's a bad thing because it's like now they get a free Hail Mary at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But from 35-yard line, that's a far throw. That's a long ball.
No, I know, but and maybe if you want to give the choice. But you can't replace your onside kick with you either have to make the kick a dead ball and there's no chance of but of course then it takes all the excitement out of it. So it's not all about safety. It's about we got to keep some excitement in there. I don't know, maybe you could choose. I might be able to buy into it more where you could go for the onside kick or you can go for 4th and 15 on your own 35 or wherever it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying I don't like the idea of the onside kick has its place in this game, and I could be wrong, but I don't recall a whole lot of guys getting seriously hurt on an onside kick.
Well, let's see. No, they were saying, but basically the onside kick is safer than the original kickoff. But it's still, when you have an overloaded side and you have 8 guys on one side and literally 4 or 5 of them, their only job is to hit the crap out of a guy that's standing there. Right? Like the guy can't run at you. Like you could potentially hit the ball if you run at it. So you have to stay behind that 10 yards. Or I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I think it's a fun idea, to be honest. But I guess you really love the onside kick, and that's why you don't. I guess I'm not married to the onside kick, and especially since they already basically killed the onside kick. Oh, I didn't even see this. So the 8% number was in 2018. The 2019 dropped down to 6%. So the onside kick is effectively dead at 6%. Where now, but the 4th and 15, they averaged those out. People that went for 4th and 15, they had a 15.9% success rate. So now you get closer to what the onside kick used to be with a 4th and 15 rather than an onside kick now with the new rules.
Yeah, and I understand that. And again, we could spend a whole segment talking about the rules I disagree with, and stopping the guys from getting a running start when the ball is kicked. It seems utterly ridiculous to me. You don't think they can get to top speed in 5 yards after the ball is kicked? The fact that they're allowed to run, you know what I'm saying? It's like they still have to run 50 yards to get to the guy or 60 yards to get to the guy, and you're going to tell me that making them start from a standing position will slow down their momentum as they go down. It's like those guys in 5 yards are going to be at top speed, and before they even reach a defender anyway, they're going to already be at top speed. So the whole idea of you can't pass.
Well, the fix for that is what the XFL did. Did you like what they did or no?
Which one you
So the the XFL essentially eliminated the onside kick. There is no onside kick, and the kicking off team, the players start on the 35-yard line of the opponent's 35-yard line. The blockers for the other team start on the 25-yard line, and nobody's allowed to move until the receiving team catches the ball.
Oh my God, I'd have to see that. I can't even picture that. I'd have to see that.
Yeah, so nobody's allowed to. He kicks it off, and nobody's allowed to move until the receiving team catches the ball, and then everybody's allowed to move. And now you only have 10 yards apart rather than somebody running with a full head of steam at 40, 50 yards downfield, blowing them up. Other than the kicker.
That's kind of the opposite of kick the can, isn't it? You kick the can and people run until you pick up the can, or what was the game where they were allowed to run until you picked it up, and then they had to freeze, and then you tried to hit one of them with the can.
I never played that version of it.
There might be we used to play it with a ball, so it's probably not kick the can, but
yeah.
It was basically you would take the ball and throw it up into the air, and people were allowed. They all started next to you, and they were allowed to run away from you until you caught it. Then they had to stay where they were, and you tried to throw it and hit somebody. So it just seemed like the opposite of everybody stand still until the ball's caught, and then you start running.
Yeah.
Anyway. But like I said, we could do a whole segment on rules that I think are way out of control. But
yep. All right. Well, that was fun. All right. So we're moving on. So we have 2 more topics left. The last one is something that you did not have interest in, but I thought it was cool, is the Lance Armstrong 30 for 30 documentary on ESPN. And I obviously did not, similar to Michael Jordan era, I didn't grow up. I grew up in here, but I didn't know what was going on. I was too young to understand all of this stuff. I'm someone that still rooted for Lance Armstrong in the Tour de France that when he came back to where Alberto Contador ended up taking the win. For some reason, I really enjoy the Tour de France. I know it's just bicycles, like people on bicycles going. It's kind of boring just to watch, but at the same time, I don't know. I like the jerseys, the green jersey, the polka dot jersey, the white jersey, the yellow jersey, like following there's races within the race. So I enjoy it. But the Lance Armstrong documentary was very interesting. So they went to 1999 when he won his first Tour de France. And so they were doing everything leading up to that. So at this point, he hasn't gotten caught. But what do you remember from those times?
Okay, well, first of all, let me say that I watched Lance Armstrong and every one of, and maybe not the first one, but after when he was going for back-to-back, guy I work with I was on the Volvo bike racing team, so he was a big cyclist. But Lance Armstrong sucked me in the second year, and this was a guy that started out, wasn't doing all that great, ended up with testicular cancer, beat cancer, and came back onto the scene. And he was a guy that worked hard. I mean, his team rode every course twice prior to the race because they could learn where and when to make their moves, and they worked. So it seemed to me that he worked really, really hard, and then he started rolling off these Tour de France's. And I'm going to tell you that there was a period of time where there was nobody that could even compete with him. Just a real quick story. I remember they're going up this hill. I don't know what the degree incline is, but he's riding side by side with this guy, and they're having a conversation. Couldn't hear what they were saying, but they talked for a couple of minutes. Then Lance waved at him and was like, bye, and he kicked it into high gear, and he just went up this hill he just left the guy in his dust. And I thought, man, this is amazing. Here's a guy that beat cancer, works his butt off, and he is just in he's in a class by himself, much like the Michael Jordan of basketball, or so
Michael Phelps in swimming, stuff like this. Yep.
And he, for so many years, and in hindsight, I realized that what he would say is things like, "Well, I never tested positive, or I always tested negative. I always, and he would, anybody that questioned him, he would throw them under the bus and run them over with the train." There were so many people that, Floyd Landis was one, and I know that was later on, but where he just would absolutely come at people with both guns, both barrels blazing, and just sounded so confident. And then, so again, I watched every one of them, and it was really fun with what's the guy's name? I can't think of his big competitor, the guy that was trying to beat him and never ended up beating him, and his name is escaping me right now. But he, like I said, he just railed and destroyed everybody around him that said anything. And then for him to come out in when was 2013? When was it?
2011, I think. I think it's or maybe it's.
I thought maybe I'm thinking about when he got on the Oprah show, and then he was yes, I'm sorry, I was doing this, and it was all a big lie. And I just thought, you know what? You sucked me in, and I am not happy with the fact that
they did not in this documentary try to paint him in some positive light. Just to let you know. Well, I know you were concerned about that.
I was going to say that documentary would have been about 30 seconds long if they tried to do that.
Yeah. I mean, they talked about how, some weird stuff, with his mom. His mom was not a disciplinarian at all. Basically let him do whatever. And, of course, his real father was never in the picture. So he just had stepfathers. But weird things like this. I think this is ridiculous. But she sent Rick Crawford, who was his coach at the time. He was Lance was, I believe, only 15 or 16 years old at the time. And allowed him to take him to Bermuda, where he then just caused a ruckus in Bermuda. He rented him a scooter, wrecked the scooter, just said, and anytime he tried to tell him, "What the heck are you doing?" blah blah blah, he basically told him to screw off. I don't care what you have to say. And he came back and told his mom, and his mom said, "You have no authority over him." Then why did you send me as his as the person that's supposed to be looking after him? Why did you send me with him at this point? If I'm not the authority figure, I'm the adult in the room. Why did you send me to that? So he had a very interesting, very different upbringing with everything going on. But one of his stepdads, that actually is the Armstrong where he got his last name from, was apparently extremely strict. Would beat him if he left a drawer open, crap like that. Was extremely strict, and also pushed him extremely hard on athletics. So anything he was doing, he was a coach, and he would push him to the nth degree. And the stepfather actually said, "The only thing that I'm concerned of my upbringing is giving him an win at all cost attitude," which probably led him to do these performance enhancing drugs to then cheat, essentially, to win. So it's kind of sad to see that that's what his upbringing was.
Yeah. And I'll just add one more thing, and then as my last comment to this, and then all fairness to him, I believe that it was rampant in the Tour de France, and that there was a lot of guys that were doing this.
Oh, 100%.
And the other thing I wanted to say was, as far as interest, I watched the Tour de France for 6 years while Lance Armstrong was in it, and as soon as he stopped racing, and I think when he came back, I probably watched that one too because it was a comeback, but I have never watched the Tour de France that Lance Armstrong was not in. That's how focused, that's how much attention, and I knew a lot of people that watched it just for him, and so again, compare him to Tiger Woods, who they said how many people Tiger Woods brought into the PGA, that there was people that would never.
100% of black people that started watching golf was because of Tiger Woods. How many of them watched golf, right?
Right. So he spiked the popularity of it, and I'm sure Tour de France benefited from that financially. financially, and who knows?
That's
that might
why
bring-
they actually talked about that. That's why the chairman of the Tour de France, they believe that he turned away, like basically turned a blind eye. Because, I know you've quoted this, and he talks about how he never failed a drug test, like 500
Yeah.
drug tests, and he never failed. That is not true. They talked about where one of them, he did fail a drug test, but he got away with it because it happened to be a steroid that you could put on as a cream
Right.
instead, where there's certain steroids that you could only take as injection. And if it was one of those steroids, he would have been screwed right then and there because there would have been no excuse. But he actually was able to get away with it because there was a cream form. And he said, no, I had some, I don't know if he said soreness or scars on my leg or something like that. I was just using a cream, and that's how it got into his blood, and that's how he failed the test. This EPO, I never heard of this EPO. Did you know that's what they take?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
So what EPO is, because Lance Armstrong admitted that he was doing drugs early on into his pro career. 21, I think he said, like early on into his pro, that he was taking these drugs, steroids. But EPO is something that he was not taking until he got with Michael Ferrari, his coach. Maybe I said that wrong. Ferrari. But EPO apparently increases your red blood cell count and could increase your muscle effectiveness up by 10%. So a Tour de France is a 90-hour race. That could be potentially, or maybe if they weren't taking drugs, it's a 95-hour race. That could bring you all the way down to under 90 hours in effectiveness.
And I don't know. I assume there's a part 2. I don't want to,
Yep, there is a part 2.
I'm sure they're going to cover blood transfusions, but to the extent that he went to cover it up in the sophisticated system, I'll call it a system or network, I guess is a better way of saying it, about the people that were.
And also the thing about this EPO is it was untraceable by test for a long time. It took them a long time to be able to test for EPO because all it was doing was increasing your red blood cells.
Right.
It wasn't a steroid that bulks you up or anything like that, but it increased which all it did with that is be able to get oxygen to your muscles. So it just allowed your oxygen or your muscles to get more oxygen. The last thing I wanted to mention on this was at one point in the documentary, someone said, oh, they should have known that he was cheating because the 1998 Tour de France was the one riddled in controversy. I don't know if you know about this. You said you didn't follow it, so you may not. They talk about it in the documentary where the 1998 Tour de France almost got shut down because of rampant drug use.
Yeah, I remember, and
Okay.
I was not following it, but I remember hearing about that was.
And so
it was,
the next year, they talk about how he ended up beating the time that the other guy posted. And it's like, you should have known. I just want to put rest to that. It was 200 miles shorter the following year. They tried to make it a little shorter to be like, all right, you don't have to take drugs now because it's not as far. But it's still a ridiculously long race. But it was still
21 days.
Yeah. 200 miles off, though, and he only beat the time by an hour.
Right.
If you average all that out, and he had to do another 200 miles, or whatever it was, I think it was actually only 120 miles. It was 120 miles, because it added 5.5 hours, or 4.5 hours to the race. He would have been at 95 hours instead of 91.5.
Right.
So there wasn't a great way to tell. And it wasn't until later he actually started beating the average mile per hour average. So there's the average Tour de France winner runs the race at 25.2 miles per hour. And he didn't start beating that until his 4th win.
Yeah, but also understand he was getting better. Him and his team were getting better at the way they were doping.
100%.
So it's...
Well, they were also probably just getting better and tactically, because they were talking about how in 1999, like they didn't go in there with high expectations. and all of a sudden now they're the front runner and he's in the yellow jersey, and it's like we're playing this one day at a time. Like, what's the strategy here? We didn't expect to be here. So it was a interesting race. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting documentary. I thought it was a weird start. They just came out with all sorts of F-bombs. Lance Armstrong, it was all of a sudden just F you that, F this, that, F that. I was like, whoa, okay, interesting. But overall, I thought it was good. They did not paint him in a positive light. There was actually a lot of people talking about how he was an a-hole. People were. I actually wrote this down. It was like Michael Jordan with fewer morals. Because people talk about Michael Jordan being an a-hole, but obviously Michael Jordan was not cheating. Like Lance Armstrong, and Lance Armstrong was not afraid to cheat at all. But I thought it was a decent watch.
Yeah.
It was not as good as the Michael Jordan documentary, not nearly as good as that, but I thought it was a decent watch.
Yeah.
All right, on to the last. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just going to say I'm down to one more episode. I have been watching. I think it's very good, and I'm on episode 10. I'll watch that very soon. But
there you go.
Really,
awesome.
Really good.
Yeah, don't you like how they were doing it? Like, basically, it's every episode's a season long and everything like that. And they also talk about more than just Jordan. They talk about Rodman. They talk about Pippen getting drafted. I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
Everybody, yeah, it was really good. But
all right, cool. So, on to the last subject of the day. And it is Redskins running back, future Hall of Famer Adrian Peterson went on record and says he believes that this Washington Redskins team can flip their record from last year. If you don't remember, we were 3-13 last year. So this year, he says we could go 13-3. Sure. But what we're going to do today is we are going to be real homers, and we are going to go through the schedule once again, but with rose-colored goggles, and go through it and decide how our Washington Redskins are going to make a 13-3 season. You ready for this?
Yeah, we can. I mean, we're gonna. There's no way we can not. We can't. There's no way we can do this without sounding like serious homers.
Oh, it's gonna be ridiculous. It's gonna be awesome. Full disclosure, this is going to be absolutely, the stuff that comes out of our mouths next is not going to be family friendly. No. All right.
So hold on. Okay, for us to get to 13-3, if we break this down into 4 quarters, so 4 sets of games, that we would have to go 3-1 in all 3 or all
3 of
4
them
sections, and win an extra one somewhere along the way.
Yeah. So we have to go 4-0 in a 4-week period, and we can go 3-1 the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So week 1, we are back to the Eagles.
All right. So the only thing I can say is we play them, although we played them in Philadelphia, but we play them like we did last year, only we don't lose gas in the second quarter.
We crush them, okay? Carson Wentz, you get hurt again. You blow out your knee for the 14th time in your career. You're out for the season, and their backup comes in, Nate Sudfeld, and we just manhandle this dude. Chase Young, 5 sacks, rookie debut, breaks the NFL record. Crush them with a 31-16 victory. 31. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, the way the game started last year, if we didn't run out of gas in the second half, now granted they picked up the pace, but we don't run out of gas, we might beat them in something similar to that. We were up by 21-7.
Yeah.
So so we outplayed them in the first half. And,
no, we were up 17-0. 17-0. That's what it was at one point, right?
Yeah, I thought maybe you might be right, but
yeah,
anyway,
I think we're up 17-0.
So I just know at the first half, I thought we were up by 2 scores. I thought they were starting to come back. I can't remember the score now, but anyway. All right, so you say we crush them. I say, okay, we surprise them and we beat them handily. So we're on the same page there.
Awesome. All right, week 2, Arizona.
Oh, I think week 2 and week 3 are a done deal.
Week 2 and week 3 are a done deal. DeAndre Hopkins on the straps with Fabian Moreau. Fabian Moreau comes out with a huge rookie, or not rookie, he's not a rookie anymore, but a huge breakout season. That's what I meant to say. And he all of a sudden puts the world on notice. DeAndre Hopkins, you ain't nobody. Again, Montez Sweat this game has 3 sacks on Kyler Murray because after the crazy week 1 that Chase Young has, they're like, we need to triple team him, have 2 blockers on him with a chip out of the backfield. Montez Sweat has a huge game. We win in Arizona 27-12.
Interesting score.
100%.
4 field goals, or they miss an extra point?
Oh, they missed the extra point on the first one and go for 2 on the second one and fail.
Gotcha, okay.
Yep. I already had that planned out. Don't you worry. All right. Browns, done deal. We don't need to go over the Browns. Browns suck. All right. Ravens, week 4.
All right. I think as much as it pains me to say, I think this is where we get grounded a little bit.
Ha! Child's play. Lamar Jackson gets hurt week 3. They're way confused, okay? They're like, we can't run the ball with RG3. He's made of glass, all right? All of a sudden, their offense is so stagnant. Their defense plays us tough, though. This is going to be a tough, grinded-out game, 13-7.
Okay. I like the way you're thinking.
Browns, by the way, was 54-0 just for fun. All right. Week 5.
Hold on. I was going to say, you can break it down however you want, but my theory is the NFC sucks, so we sweep the NFC in the second quarter of the season, and we lose to the Rams. You follow me?
So you're the whole NFC or just the NFC East?
Sorry, the NFC.
Okay.
I was only the NFC.
The NFC
so
East.
We play in the four weeks. In those 4 games, we play the Giants twice and the Cowboys once, and we play the Rams. I'm saying the NFC. Sorry, I meant the NFC East. I said NFC.
So we lose to the Rams.
Right.
Is what you're saying. You know what? You're right because Jared Goff does not get hurt. Okay. So we lose a tough one to the Rams because Sean McVay comes back to his prominence of a future Hall of Fame coach. He beats the best Redskins team in history because we're young. He beats them 23-20.
Okay,
all
respectable.
Right. Week 6. Giants, Daniel Jones, no chance. Saquon Barkley on the straps. Sean Deion Hamilton has 12 tackles in the game. We win this game 27-14.
Okay.
You agree with that or disagree? You have to agree.
No,
all right.
No, I know. This is not a logical. We are having fun trying to get to 13.
Dak Prescott does not sign the franchise tag. He decides he's holding out. Cowboys are fine with Carson Palmer. They're actually having a decent season at this point. We are on week 7. They're sitting there at 4-2, and they're looking at a 5-1 Redskins team like this is not real. They only beat the Ravens because they lost Lamar Jackson. They only beat the Eagles because they lost Carson Wentz. The Giants suck. They lost to the Rams, so they're not a freaking crazy great team. But we come in here and we shock them with an offensive shootout, 31-28. Dwayne Haskins throws 4 touchdowns.
Okay, but I disagree with it because the only thing I disagree with that is that Andy Dalton can't get away from Chase Young and the front line, and he's on his butt most of the game, and they don't score that much.
You know what? I'm going to give the Cowboys line some credit. They're good. They're going to keep him somewhat protected. They're going to have a decent offensive game. Ezekiel Elliott is a tough matchup for us. We don't have great linebackers, so he could bulldoze them a little bit, but that's okay because we pull it out at the end. Terry McLaurin has 3 of those touchdowns, by the way.
Okay.
Week 8, Giants, same story. Joke. We beat them 21-13. Okay.
And everybody's talking about how lucky we are that we didn't draft Daniel Jones and we went with Haskins.
That's right. Dwayne Haskins is going to be the next Hall of Famer. Okay? Here we go.
Well, we got a couple more years before that happens, but yeah.
No.
All right.
All right, here we go. Now we're on to the next set of 4 with the Lions, the Bengals, the Cowboys, and the Steelers. What do you got?
So just to be sure, our record right now is 6-2, right?
Our record. Well, your record right now is 6-2. My record is 7-1.
7-1. Okay. So all right.
Because you said we lost to the Ravens and the Rams.
Because I'm thinking that this category right here, this third quarter, if you will, is where we go 4-0. In my book. So we're 6-2 right now, and looking at this one. Because I think I just think the 49ers going to see if again we're having a good time or having fun doing this. But
yes.
if we got to win 4 games in one of the quarters, I think the third quarter is our best chance.
That's fine. I have a splitting with the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to have a decent year. We're going to lose to the Cowboys in a tough one, 24-21. But the Steelers with Big Ben are not going to have a chance. Okay? Big Ben is going to be on his ass because Chase Young is not going to have broken tackles in his town. Okay? So the Steelers, we are going to beat a healthy 27. 27 is going to be a popular number this year. 27-17. Cowboys are going to beat us in a tough one. I said 23-20, right? No, 24-21. Okay. Now,
a close game, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Lions, we crush. It's not going to be fun. It's just going to be a 21-7. Week 10. Actually, I think there was a bye week in there. Whatever. You get the idea. Week 10, the Bengals. The Bengals. Yeah, right. We lose the Bengals on my deathbed. All right.
So right now, after the third quarter, we're both 10-2.
Correct. And I'm going to have it. We beat the Bengals 24-12. It's not going to be pretty. Week 11. It's probably not right. It's probably week 12. Week 13. Okay. Week 14 is a tough loss to the established Niners. Okay. We go down, and this one's not going to be pretty. This is going to be our come down to earth game. Okay. This is going to be the Niners have our number, and Kyle Shanahan's going to beat us pretty good. We're going to lose this one 31-17.
Okay, I got you.
All right,
so
week 15.
So we got to win out. So how do we win?
All right, how we win out. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks come to town. All right. And he has some good young receivers. Okay. Antonio Brown actually might come to the Seattle Seahawks. Did you hear rumors that Russell Wilson wants some Antonio Brown?
They can have him, but yeah, I heard that.
This is going to be a tough one because their defense might be waning a little bit, but their offense is going to be tough. This one is going to be a big 34-31 game coming down to a Dustin Hopkins field goal, and he does not miss it like in overtime versus the Bengals a couple years ago.
So a veritable shootout, you're saying?
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a tough one. All right, now we got the Panthers. Yeah, right. Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers get destroyed, 24-10. They don't ever get anything going on offense. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't have a lot of weapons down there. Not gonna be pretty. I already said Carson Wentz was out for the season week 1, and I meant it. So no Carson Wentz in week 17. And
there we end up 13-3, home field advantage.
Boom. We win the last game with Kyle Allen coming out because Dwayne Haskins is going to sit because we already locked up the first round bye. And Kyle Allen is going to show why we traded for him, and he's going to have a good day. He's going to go 75% passing, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and about 270 yards of offense. Maybe actually 250, because Adrian Peterson and Darius Skice are going to run for 200 yards that day.
So I was going to say next week we can cover how the Redskins avoid getting swept in the first round.
Boom!
But
that is how the Washington Redskins make it to 13-3. Bring home an NFC East title. Number 1 seed in the NFC. Off to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay.
Here we go. Where we crush Pat Mahomes. We show 49ers what a real defensive line looks like and destroy him. Destroy!
We are flying high right
Woo!
now. Right,
yeah,
man.
baby.
Oh,
No, that was fun. Did you have fun?
I did.
I had fun. We ended on a good note. Redskins 13-3, Super Bowl champions. Pat Mahomes didn't even see us coming. Thank you all for watching. If you have any comments down below on anything that we talked about, hit us up. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We're just here. We're going to have fun once a week, every Tuesday. See you next week.
All right, thanks. See you next time.
Awesome.